Welcome and thank you for joining us today. I'm Kaye, and with me is Abra Lee. Abra is currently Director of Youth Learning and Engagement at Temple Emanu-El of Westfield, New Jersey, soon to be transitioning back to Congregation B'nai Jeshurun in Short Hills, New Jersey. I want to just say before we begin that you are all on mute and your video is off. So I hope that didn't confuse you. You should be able to see only Abra and me and to hear us. And anything that you'd like to communicate with us, which we encourage, type informally in the chat bar. And if you have questions as we go along, please put those in the Q&A bar and we'll address those later in the show. I imagine that most of you are not 100% sure what your program will look like next year. You may need to move fluidly between in-person learning and remote and back again as the year progresses. You're probably confronting structural programmatic questions such as, will I need to stagger the attendance of my students in person in the building? And if I do, how do I manage that? And how does that affect staffing? You're likely also asking yourself curricular questions, things like, how do I continue to develop social connections while still providing content so that my children learn? How do we create activated learning sessions on Zoom or whatever video conference platform you're using so that the kids stay engaged and don't wander off? And how do I adapt my tried and true curriculum materials for remote learning? So what I'm going to ask you to do now is in the chat bar, if you could type in, and we're saving this forever, the chat bar, if you could type in what you see as your biggest challenge for next year, it'd be very informative for us all. What is your biggest challenge for next year? To answer these curricular questions and to respond to your needs, Berriman House has taken action. We have transformed many of our most popular learning materials into digital turn page, also called flipbook, but we're going to call them digital turn page products that your teachers and your students can use anywhere they are. Now, we know that you came to this webinar specifically to hear how you can create a complete and flexible prayer experience for your children, a learning experience for your children, wherever you are located, whether it's in person, whether you're on Zoom, and specifically how to use Hebrew in harmony. And that is what we are going to address today. In our time together, we will take a quick look at what Hebrew in harmony is. Abra will then tell us about her experience pivoting from a fully in-person physical learn education program to being fully online. I'll then show you the new Hebrew in harmony materials that will allow you to continue your program uninterrupted, whether you are together in the building or whether you're using Zoom. And we'll end with Q&A. To those of you who've just joined, I just want to reiterate that you'll be able to see only Abra and me, and you'll be able to hear us both, but you are all muted because it's muted and your videos are hidden because there's really a great deal of interest in this topic. So keep your questions coming in the Q&A bar. We're going to save the chat bar for informal conversation, and Abra and I will respond to them later. So to kick off what Hebrew in harmony is, at the outset, let me say that some of you are familiar with the curriculum. Some of you are using it. For you, the transition to using the new turn page materials and to using Hebrew in harmony at home should be fairly seamless. Others among you are exploring Hebrew in harmony for the first time, and we thank you for your interest. And I want to acknowledge now that because it's going to be sort of a top level, quick look at Hebrew and harmony, you will not likely get all your questions answered. And so what I'm going to do is after the session this week, I will follow up. I'm going to follow up with everybody. We'll send you the recording. And we will also send you ways that you can learn more about Hebrew and harmony. Briefly, Hebrew and Harmony is a 3-year Hebrew curriculum in which 4th through 6th graders develop a personal connection to prayer through music. The curriculum features the music of 65 popular Jewish musicians, many of whom you know and have had over to your congregation or know personally. Here is the first group on this screen, and here's the next group.
Terry, I am not seeing your screen share.
Let me try again. Okay. If others could let me know if you are able to. Abra, can you see it now? Okay.
Yes, you're good now.
Good. So, my apologies about that. And Abra, could you let me know if you can still see it?
Yes, it's perfect.
Okay, very cool. So going up one level again, Noah Aronson and Eliana Light in the top left are the co-hosts of the digital app. Eliana Light is the creator of the curriculum core, which we will talk about in a moment. So these are the 65 musicians who licensed us their music that as is appropriate for each prayer. Hebrew and Harmony is a modular program, which means that there are 22 prayer modules, and you choose those that are most appropriate for your learning situation, for your education environment. We find that most educators tend to teach the easier prayers in 4th grade and the harder prayers in 6th grade. So, for example, 4th grade, you might teach the Baruch Hu, Shema, Micha Mocha, and Brachot, let's say. And for the older grades, Birchot HaHaftarah, Kaddish, etc. And Aleinu, some of the really harder prayers. We've also seen that educators complete around 4 to 6 prayers per year. So that's 4 to 6 prayer modules a year is what you could anticipate. Until now, there have been 3 parts to the curriculum. The curriculum core, a 16-page student journal, and the app. The curriculum core looks like this. This is what Eliana Light wrote. It has lesson plans for each of the 22 prayers. So this covers all modules in Hebrew and Harmony, all 22 prayers. The journals are 1 per prayer, and they look like this. They're the physical journals. They are 16 pages, and they allow the children to do hands-on activities and, you know, read and follow along with their finger and write and draw and so on. They're also a wonderful way to create a portfolio, keep a portfolio of the children's work. So whether they are, many people save the journals in 3-ring binders. The kids save them in 3-ring binders. And Abra's nodding. And it's sort of a good way when you go back to being together, you then can more fluidly segue back into a full-blown learning experience with the journals. And the third piece is the app, the digital app, in which is where the music and the videos are located. So at the very minimum, each teacher should have an app, because that's how he or she will share the screen and play the music and videos for the kids. And we also encourage you to give your children access to the app so that they can then practice, hear the music in between, do activities, practice their reading. They can record themselves, and you, the educator, or you and your teachers can listen and give feedback in the app. So that's what we have until now. So what's new? What's new is the Hebrew and Harmony turn page product. And this is just a screenshot, and I'll tell you why. What this consists of is a digital turn page book. Down at the bottom, a teacher guide to using Hebrew and Harmony in video conference format, and for transitioning back and forth from remote to in-person, and student printable pages. And all of that I will show you after Abra has told us about her experience. So we're going to switch over to Abra now. Abra is going to tell us about her experience moving from a fully in-person to a remote learning experience with Hebron Harmony.
Thanks, Terry. Hi, everybody. Temple Emanu-El in Westfield, where I am currently working, is a very large suburban congregation, just under 1,000 families. Our youth learning and engagement department for kindergarten through 12th grade has an enrollment of just over 500. For a little bit of context, most of our students in grades K through 12 attend one on-ramp, one particular program once per week, with the exception of 4th and 5th graders. They attend twice per week, and they have Hebrew and Judaics both days. In this remote learning period, as has been our priority goal for the year, we are focusing on relationship building. And in this time in particular, when we have been physically separated from one another, we have prioritized community building. And as we've come to read in many articles at this point, focusing and prioritizing connection over content. And when we first started this remote learning, to be honest, none of us really knew what to expect or what we should do or what we shouldn't do. So for complete transparency, we really did focus our expectations for the students and the teachers on relationship building from the beginning. We did expect that Hebrew learning should, and actually really simply could, continue, because we've been using materials with a digital component for the last several years in 3rd through 5th grade. We use Hebrew and Harmony in 4th and 5th grade, and 3rd grade are having their primer using Shalom Uvracha and the Shalom Hebrew app. So we expected that that would continue, and we decided that we would use our early time together online for just community building and checking in. We also wanted to make sure from a parent's perspective that we weren't expecting too much, because we didn't know if this was going to be 2 weeks or 2 months. We certainly didn't think that we would be finishing our school year this way when we closed down. But I have to also share that I am in a district that has done some incredible remote learning. And so when we didn't know what to expect, we just modeled our program after what my children's school was doing. We found that the greatest challenge to synchronous learning online was the diversity of comfort and background and skills among our truly talented faculty of gifted teachers who had never done this before. None of us had really ever done this before. So we spent the first few weeks with our full-time staff leading and modeling what we hoped that our faculty would be able to take over if our remote learning plan had to continue after the break. So when we enacted our remote learning plan, we very quickly learned how to use Zoom, and we scheduled synchronous learning. One of the challenges that we learned very early on, something to be aware of, is should we continue this way in the fall, you may want to think about scattering your schedules. We learned that we didn't know what devices would be available by our families and which families would have multiple devices so that they could join independently. We staggered the schedule, giving our youngest learners the early slots and giving our older elementary school students some of the later slots. 10-year-olds like to sleep in a little bit more on Sunday mornings. We also very quickly learned to try and schedule around meal times so that families who were working independently before and after lunch and before and after dinner would have a mealtime break together, and we never scheduled any of our students during those times when we hoped that our families would check in with one another. So we closed the school for what we thought would be 2 weeks, which quickly ran up against spring break and Passover. Then what we decided to do over spring break and Passover was still give our students the break from content learning and give our teachers the break from content teaching. But we wanted to utilize that time for some faculty planning, to give them an opportunity to start to think a little bit about what it would mean to move forward after spring break. we wanted to continue to prioritize connection, but we shifted to a connection through content mindset, where our teachers were beginning to use their content areas for connection building and relationships within the class. So for example, a Jewish history class, the students were assigned to find an artifact that was reflective of their family's Jewish history. And the check-in question at the beginning of the next class was to share that item and how it reflected their family's history. It was connecting us to their content area, but also helping the teachers and the students to get to know one another a little bit better. One example that was really beautiful was a student who brought in a Kiddush cup that was used for her parents' wedding, and it was also used at her grandfather's bar mitzvah. So these were some of the really special things that were helping to build community while we were starting to come back to our content areas. Throughout this time, because we had been using Hebrew and Harmony in the 4th and 5th graders, we continued those lessons. And in the beginning, we had our full-time staff leading the lessons. We used the videos from Hebrew and Harmony introducing the different prayer units, and we screen shared showing those videos so that we could also remind students who had maybe not practiced as much at home between sessions as we might have assigned, or students for whom Hebrew might not have been their #1 priority between class sessions and were really still new. What we chose to do in order to make sure that our students were fully comfortable with using the app was we actually set up a Zoom meeting and recorded our staff using the app, logging in, and accessing the videos, practicing reading Hebrew, and using the mic to record their practice so that the teachers could then listen and provide feedback. When we communicated with parents, we made sure that we were very clear on what particular verses of which particular prayer units we wanted them to be focusing on. And we encouraged the students to reach out to the teachers so they could be speaking directly with them. Every single week, we sent out an email with the remote learning plan, and we continued to put links to everything, instructions for everything, previously recorded meetings, and the teacher's contact information, so that parents who had a lot on their plate 2 weeks ago but were now re-engaging could easily catch up and not feel like they were far behind. We also spent the time over spring break continuing our connection building with our full-time staff, just having hangouts so that the students could have that time to continue to socialize. And it was mostly seamless for them. And with our faculty, since our full-time staff was supporting and monitoring and hosting all of those hangouts, we also gave the teachers that time for planning and preparation, creating a shared Google Sheet with resources. Some of the things that we put into that resource sheet were links to the Behrman House Play and Learn. We also shared the free resources with our families, and we made no assumptions of anyone's comfort level, prior knowledge, or previous experience with using these materials, even though they had been part of our curriculum all year long. We looked at this almost as a reset and a freebie for the time that had come, so that everyone felt that they were entering with very low barriers and there was no judgment, and it made it easy for families who had not previously been as engaged with their children's Hebrew learning to jump on and not feel so much pressure that they weren't as engaged as maybe they would have liked or we would have liked in the beginning. So when we used our materials in the school, we managed them, as Terry said, with a 3-ring binder. And the prayer journals go into a page protector, a plastic page protector. These binders get promoted up with the students from 4th grade to 5th grade, and they do serve as a portfolio of the students' work and learning. And we realized that we were heading into our final unit. So with permission from Behrman House, we emailed PDFs of those booklets, which Terry referred to as the prayer journals. And when we came together in our live Zoom meetings, we used that time for creating the content and context learning. So we screen shared the PDF that we had sent to them. we screen shared ourselves using the app so that they could watch the videos along with us. And we also screen shared pages from our Siddur that we use in our sanctuary, so the students could also see where this falls in practical use during their tefillah in the sanctuary. So after we had emailed those PDFs to the students, we asked them to print them and add them to their binders, which go home with the students each week. And we continued to share links and recordings to what the current assignments were. Also, in helping to manage the materials, we learned early on that it would be beneficial for a 2-day-a-week school and students with a lot of activities, like most of our students have, to be able to slip in and out if they needed to miss a class. So we created a map for our students, a simple chart that we called the Tefillah Tracker. For those of you who've used the Hineni series when it was self-guided, there was a really wonderful progress chart in that resource guide in the self-guided Hineni, and we mirrored our Tefillah Tracker using the prayer journals and the curricular units that we were learning now in Hebrew and Harmony, so that each week it was very clear which verse of which prayer booklet, of which journal the students should be working on. That way, when the teachers emailed the parents, they could ask them to check their Tefillah Tracker to make sure that they were using the recording button to practice, so that the teachers could then provide feedback on where each specific child was. So in addition to our learning continuing, our assessment also continued, and we've now been able to assess all of the students for placement for next year in 6th grade, where they'll be tracked based on their performance and assessment in 5th grade. I will say that it has been incredibly easy to pivot from using Hebrew in Harmony in the school to using it online via Zoom. We have used breakout rooms for when we need to have some smaller groups for discussion. And we have not yet utilized our madrichim, but our plan for the fall is, should we use a hybrid model or should we have to close down for an extended period of time again like we did this year, that we would engage our madrichim and that they would be trained in how to lead Zoom breakout rooms so that the teacher could remain in the large room, and when students need to be in small groups for discussions or activities together, that there would still be someone monitoring those rooms. Terry, I think that that is all of the highlights of how we used the curricular pieces. It might be helpful for us to start going back to answer some of those question and answers, which are really, a few of them I tried to pull into to answer while I was describing how we did ours, but there are a few that we need to get to.
Right, we will. There's one thing, thank you so much. Thank you, Abra. And I particularly want to thank you for your partnership throughout the years. One thing I want to elaborate on that you mentioned, and that is you spoke about you got permission from Berryman House to use the PDFs. So for those of you who may not know, there was a period when COVID hit where you all went away, and we got many inquiries about how to use the materials online, because the kids suddenly disappeared and they didn't have their journals with their print materials with them. And for a short period, a limited time, we gave permission. If you filled out a form and etc., we sent you a permission letter to use PDFs. So what I'm going to show you now, and Abra, we will get to the questions, of course we will. What I'm going to show you now is what we have substituted for a much better version that we have created now, that you can share, that teachers can share on screen. And it looks like this. What you are seeing now is the Hebrew and Harmony turn page product. At the top of the screen, the main event, the main feature, is the turn page book. Down, and I'll explain it to you in a minute. At the bottom, on the bottom right, you'll see the teacher PDF. This is a short teacher's guide on how to use the turn page book, but beyond that, how to use Hebrew and Harmony for video conference learning. And I'll show you a few examples. Next to that, at the bottom, are the student printables. And this is we have selected one particularly rich page from each journal, from each of the 22 journals, that your kids can print out, teachers can email home, and they can, something for them hands-on to do between sessions. So what is the turn page book? It is all 22 journals put together in one, into one turn page, one flip book, one turn page book, arranged alphabetically. So it's an on-screen version for you to click through, for your teachers to click through, clicking left because it's Hebrew opening, and it's arranged alphabetically. So it goes Aleinu, Ashrei, Avot ve'emavot, Baruchu, Brachot, and so on. And you can click from one page to the next. You can expand your screen. You can zoom in to focus on something particular. And you can, of course, use your annotation tools, which I'm going to demonstrate now. So that is the turn page book. And let me give you one example of how you might use it. Now, let's say we are learning Micha Mocha. Okay? I'm the teacher. I'm going to share my screen with you all, and I hope you'll participate, even though I can't see and hear you. And we've done maybe on-screen reading. Perhaps we've spoken about the photos. We've done some drawing with annotation tools, and all of this, everything I'm saying, is in the little teacher's guide that we provide you with this product. And I want to reinforce that all the techniques from the curriculum core, from this, can be adapted for what I'm saying here. So we want to work together on page 10 of Micha Mocha. Here we go. I'm going to zoom in. I want to work with you all. I can, by clicking on it, can drag it so it's a bit more front and center. Now I'm going to ask you all, would you please pick up a pen or a wooden spoon if you happen to be in the kitchen, or some other sort of a clunking device, and we're going to tap this out together. Now, we're a big group. You're all on mute. If you have a small class, or you work with individual students, or you're in a breakout room, you can keep them, you can ask them to unmute themselves. So let's go. So we might do this. Mi, chamocha, ba'elim Adonai, mi, chamocha, etc. And so we've sort of engaged the students, we've given them something a little bit different to do. They're using their bodies, they're using a bit of movement. And now we might go a bit deeper into the learning and say something to the effect of, all right, who can spot the word, the Hebrew word that means who? And if you see it, raise your hand, okay? And then tell me with your fingers, how many times you see it, and hopefully they'll do this. Now kids can answer just using their body, or they could write down answers, or of course if they're unmuted they can speak it. They could annotate the answers. So then we might go a little bit deeper and say, okay, great, now show me with your fingers what line do those two words, does that word me appear on? And somebody will say line 1, and somebody will say line 2. And that way you affirm and you reinforce the correct answer. So that is one way to use the turn page book in sharing your screen. So again, I can hear you asking, hear you in quotation marks, asking, how my teacher's going to know how to do this? And again, what we urge you is that each teacher will have a curriculum core at home to refer to. By the way, it's also available as a Kindle book on Amazon, if you prefer that. Your teachers can perhaps buy it and you can reimburse them, or whatever arrangement you want to make. And the teacher guide to the turn page book has all these ideas too. We also provide lots of ways to use Zoom, and I've seen there are lots of questions about using Zoom. I want to, trying to think if we have time. There's this one activity I'm just dying to do, and so We are at 1:30. I think I'm going to have to skip it. Ooh, it's a movement and music activity. And maybe if we have time at the end, we'll do it, but it's how to use the app. What do you think, Abra? Okay. I just got a text message from my colleague Aviva, who said we don't have time. So I will defer to her. And let us go to, let's summarize. And let me tell you that, sorry, Abra, you had a question?
I'm seeing a lot of questions that will require some follow-up, and I'm happy to share my email. And I think if there's a way that we can share the recording and follow up through, whether it's email or we post things, I think that some of these questions, people are looking for examples to see things that we don't have with us.
Okay, very good. We will certainly follow up. You'll have both our emails, and we will do that this week. I think before we turn to questions, you are probably asking, how do I get this? Okay, so where is this located? How do I get this turn page product? Yes, I'm interested. My teacher will need to share a screen. How do I get it? So it will be available. It's not available yet. It's coming. All the new turn page materials are coming in June and July, and you'll have everything well in time for the new school year. You go to the Berman House website. I'm going to try to tell you this in 2 sentences, 3 sentences. You want to order, say, the Shema turn page. You have 12 children and 1 teacher. You will go to that product page, the Shema turn page. You will choose 13 of them, 12 children, 1 teacher, and you will receive in the mail, in the UPS, 12 copies of the print journal and access a license for you'll receive 13 copies of the journal, and you'll get a license for 13 people to have access to the digital turn page. The cost, the journal is $2.95, and the turn page edition adds on an extra 50 cents per user per prayer for a 1-year license. So that is how you get your hands on the physical journal, and in this instance it comes with the access to the turn page edition as well. It's a license. It's licensed for 50 cents extra in addition to the journal, 50 cents extra per user per prayer for the year. Let us jump to questions. But first, Abra, thank you so much for participating with me. You've been an invaluable partner in this. And I'm going to go to, wow, some are in the chat bar and some are in the Q&A.
So I think one thing that's important, Terry, is to recognize that in addition to questions about Hebrew Harmony, the app, what can be accessed on the website, there are also some questions here about using video conferencing, like Zoom, screen sharing, and things like that. So Zoom, I have learned, has incredible tutorials on their website, and we have just kind of figured it out by trial and error. If anybody wants to email me, I'm happy to talk you through what we learned.
Right, and we, in addition, Berman House provides in the teacher guide to using these turn page materials ways to use Zoom as well, how to use breakout groups, annotation devices, the annotation tool, and so on. And that was Victoria's question, how to keep the children on Zoom and in the meeting. And this is a topic, maybe Abra, you could provide, some information, and we'll do that after. We'll do this in follow-up, how to keep children engaged on Zoom. How will Hebrew Harmony work with teaching Tefillah? Abra, you've described how you integrate it. Would you like to respond to that?
Sure.
How do you combine it with teaching Tefillah?
We teach Tefillah with a Tefillah experience, and also with something we call a learner's minion, and we essentially walk through the pages of the Siddur. We connect our content for our lessons to what's in the prayer journals so that we're accessing some prior knowledge and helping to take a little bit of the pressure off the teachers in the classroom so they can really work on the Hebrew reading, focusing on the decoding, and not as heavily on the content in the classroom. So we do use our time in the sanctuary to do that, but we refer to the app. So for example, the introduction videos, if you're not familiar with Hebrew and Harmony, each unit has an introduction and it gives you a little bit of context for the prayer.
Right, thank you. We have a question. I'm interested in knowing what is different if the teacher is one-to-one versus one-to-multiple students. It's the same process, right? You're still sharing your screen. The student still has the journal and has access to the turn page. And it's easier if you're one-on-one. You keep the student unmuted, and it's like private tutoring. I would like an
important question about that. This was a question that I had also. If you have some of the packets, can you purchase just a license? So
the way it works is that the license is, we see this as we see the digital access, the turn page, as an enhancement of the turn page of the physical journal, as like a complete integrated package. So you buy the physical journal and then you choose to add on access to the license. So you cannot buy the license alone. It's an add-on to the physical journal. We believe that that will ensure the best learning outcomes. I would like my directors to watch this too. I'm a teacher. You can feel free to share the recording with your director. You should have Elizabeth also on call, show you the web page she created in prior years with all the curriculum materials. Would love to see it, Elizabeth. You'll have my email. You probably got it already, but when we send out our follow-up, would love to see that. How large are the groups? Maybe that was for Abra. How large are your groups?
Our groups are very large. We have classes of up to 22, and in this time we've been gathering multiple cohorts just because we have so many Zoom accounts that we can use. And so we have had up to 80 in a meeting, and we just have several people working sort of as ground control and background to keep an eye on things like the chat and things like that.
Can we get a sample of your Tefillah tracker? That is from, I'm making a note, that's why I'm turning my head to the side. And that is from Self-Guided Hineni. I will make sure that you all get a copy of that so that you can use it too.
It's in the Hineni, it's called the Prayer Mastery Chart. That's what people, yes, that's what people are looking for.
Correct. Okay. Thank you. Thanks for asking, Denise. That was Julie. Lisa's asking, do all of your parents respond to the emails you send them?
Definitely not. Like every other school, and not everybody attends school like every other school. We knew it. We expected it. We were a little surprised by people who didn't have sports conflicts and started showing up in Zoom. But like we do in our schools every day, we offer as much as we feel is comprehensive, and we hope they take advantage of it.
Linda's asking, I know students can record themselves in Hebrew and Harmony if they have the app, but is there an easy way for them to record themselves chanting along with, say, Cantalisa Levine's Shema recording? The recording in the app is specific to the prayer practice, so they can choose easy, intermediate, or expert, and then they can read along with that. You could use other tools other recording tools for specifically singing along with a prayer with a musical rendition, for example.
Terry, quite a few of the questions here are around product purchasing, packaging. I wonder if maybe we could summarize some of these questions and include that in the follow-up that goes out.
Please explain the share screen PDF. So I just want to emphasize that it's not a PDF. What it is, it's an on-screen version. It's called a digital turn page book or a flip book. So just the technicality of it not being a PDF. And so let me see, Abra, can you tell me which questions you refer? Can you just purchase the live? We've seen that. Is the app additional? The app is separate. Yes, the app that is mostly used on an iPad but you can use it in a browser as well, is separate, and that is a separate licensing fee. That is it's $9.95 per user for the year. That's entirely separate. What if we already have some packets? Can you purchase just the license? No, because it is one integrated package of the journal plus the turn page, you buy it only together for $3.45. And again, that gets one user access to the digital turn page for 1 year. Do you have anything we can use for teaching Hebrew? Felicia, I'm going to sort of interpret what you're asking, and I hope I'm doing so correctly. We have, if you want to teach primers, we have next Monday at 1 o'clock, we're doing a session on how to use a variety of our primers in the new turn page fashion. As I mentioned, we're bringing out many of our most popular learning materials in this form. And in addition, for teaching Hebrew, we have, many products for teaching modern Hebrew. And if you'd like to, when I write to you after this, if you'd like to be in touch with me specifically about that, I'll be happy to tell you what we have. Do we need a flip book for every student or just the teacher? That's a really, that's a good question that Melissa's asking. Every person using the flip book is licensing the use of it. So the teacher needs one. The teacher needs to get the journal and the flip book. That's $3.45. And for each student who is using it and accessing is watching the teacher, should we say, or has access to the flip book, that child is also, you are also buying it for that child. So every user, everybody in that class is getting a journal and a license to access the flip book. Can you give an example of how the new teacher's guide is different from the old one? Well, first, it's much shorter. The curriculum core is, I want to say, like 500 and something pages, and the Hebrew and Harmony video conference teacher's guide is, I think, 8 pages. 8 useful pages, I hope you'll find, in that it gives you very specific ways to use Hebrew and Harmony for video conference. And this shows you how to use the app, but not the turn page book, which is just a recent development. Abra, can you share your email? We will.
It's in the chat.
You can actually write it on your screen now if you want, and then share your screen.
I typed my email in the chat.
Great.
On July 1st, I'll be transitioning to another email, but I put both of those in there so you can find me before and after. There is a question regarding which level is recorded using the microphone for the practicing. We let our students decide, and then the teachers communicate with them and push them a little bit harder if they think that they need to be, but we let the students decide.
Okay, thank you. So Felicia's asking, what's the average time you anticipate having class sessions be if you have to go online next year? I'll tell you what our experience is from talking to educators. It's about 20 to 30 minutes. But Abra, what can you add to that?
We are scheduling most of our synchronous learning for about 30 minutes. And we have been doing webinars, large group meetings for about 45. That's as long as people can really sit in front of a computer. One thing that was actually really helpful and shared by another colleague is they were scheduling during their regular school, and they had 45-minute blocks, but they were scheduling an activity for students to go and do and come back during that block. So they weren't actually sitting for the full 45 minutes, like go and find an item, a scavenger hunt, things like that.
Right, and one thing I've learned is that you'll all be looking opportunities to get the kids away from the screen. If those of you who are parents and have kids learning at home know that too. And so what we've done is we've given you lots of ways to get the kids up and about, and those you can draw from the curriculum core and from the new turn page teacher guide. Rabbi Dressler asks about having sort of drop-in, like almost like Professor drop-in time, where you can just come and talk to Berman House. So on that note, what I want to ask you to do is, if you would type in the chat bar an answer to the following question. We are planning to do more webinars over the summer. We've got one next Monday at 1 o'clock on Primer Hebrew. We've got one the following Monday on Judaica materials, and those are all listed on our website. If you go to news at the top, you will see the webinars listed. In addition, what would you like to see us address if we do more sessions like this over the summer? If you could tell us, that will be super helpful in our planning. What do you want to learn about over the summer? I must pause here to say we're at 1:45, which means that our official time is over. If you'd like to leave, we're sorry you're going, and we so appreciate your time. Again, we will send out the recording. You will have, or Abra and I are going to continue to stay and take your questions. So you will have all that. If you must leave, thank you so much for being here. If you'd like to stay, we welcome your continued presence. How are you, follow-up question, how are you doing this tefillah online? No time in the sanctuary.
I was just sending a message to Julie. I'm not sure if I understand the question. Right now, nothing is happening in person in our building. We're in New Jersey, and we are not going to be gathering for quite some time in our sanctuary. But probably prior to the shutdown, we were teaching tefillah during prayer experiences or during something that we call a learner's minion that we do for 4th and 5th grade, and that we call our Adventures in the Siddur. And we just walk through the service a page at a time and talk about the content and the context of each of the prayers. And that's when we connect to the intro videos that are in the app so that it's familiar to them.
Thank you. How does Hebron Harmony support students who are still catching up on learning their letters and vowels? Hebron Harmony it presupposes, it assumes that children can decode Hebrew. Now, there are places that there are programs and settings that are using Hebron Harmony where the children actually cannot yet, have not learned all the letters and vowels. And there they might be using it, for example, for watching background to the prayer, watching the videos, listening to the music. And it's more then about the meaning rather than about actual decoding and recitation practice. I think the best use is that kids can read Hebrew, decode Hebrew, and for ongoing practice while they're using Hebron Harmony, we do have the tool within the app in which they can record themselves and the teacher can give feedback. And they can not only record themselves, they can hear the correct reading. So it's sort of an excellent reinforcement tool. Can we pay the booklet price but have it delivered in PDF? Easier to direct to the students. The booklets will be available only as a turn page, not as PDFs, and that is for reasons of copyright, intellectual property copyright. What if we have packets left over from previous years? The plan is that it will be to access the turn page. It will be sort of a new product, a new item to buy on our website. So it will be as I've described to you. Level chosen for recording, the student chooses. The teacher can guide him or her. The teacher can guide the student.
There was a follow-up question to that I just answered in the Q&A. With the easy being one word at a time, it is challenging to assess reading. We tell our students if they want to click easy and they want to record one word at a time, they still need to record the entire line. The levels basically just give them a little bit of space. Right? If they're very unsure and they want to just be able to read and record one at a time and then listen to it, that gives them a little bit of a safety net.
Thank you. Do we need to purchase for the Madrichim too? I think you might mean, Denise, the turn page materials. Yes, the answer is yes. For all users, whether teachers or students, it'll be one each. What do you recommend for grade 6? If you mean, Cookie, if you mean which prayers, I don't know, maybe you could you could expand on that question, please. If you mean what do you recommend for grade 6 prayers, usually educators, what we see is educators choose the prayers that are sort of closest to Bar and Bat Mitzvah, which is Birchot HaTorah, Birchot HaHaftarah, Aleinu, Kaddish, and they may work in some others like Shalom Aleichem, for example, and Manishtana is very, very well used. How does one annotate in the book? I know how to write on the whiteboard. It's the same. When you share your screen, when I shared my screen with you, above the word share screen, the annotation tools appear. And then you just scroll. I don't know, whatever you want to call it. Will you be offering Hebrew Alive with online components? Carolyn, thanks for asking that question. Hebrew Alive, some of you may know, is a curriculum for the teacher, an oral language program for the teacher only, in which the children move. They learn modern Hebrew language, conversation style, and they're up and about and moving, and they're playing Simon Says, and they're going to a pretend supermarket in Hebrew, and they're role-playing, and they're playing little games all in Hebrew. And yes, I'm glad you asked that. We will be providing lessons from Hebrew Alive in some fashion, but we're not sure yet, and that will be later in July. And that will give the kids something to do maybe at the beginning of the class, a little bit of fun, up and about modern Hebrew out of their seats.
Terry, I see that there is a question about primary grades using Zoom or other online platforms. And there are a couple of questions that are all sort of referring to attending services, tefillah, our learners minion, all those things that typically take place in person as a group. We are continuing to do all of those things in Zoom. So we, on Friday night, our congregation, we are a Reform congregation, and we meet over Zoom on Friday night for Shabbat, Saturday morning for B'nai Mitzvah, for Torah study. Our learners minion is now happening exactly the way it did in the sanctuary, except we are now all on Zoom. And our K-2 are also meeting via Zoom. Most of our school districts are doing some sort of video conferencing, so the students are becoming comfortable with being in front of a device, a tablet. We did have a little bit of challenge in the beginning with kindergartners running around the house with tablets, and we were mostly seeing their ceilings, but students have now really learned to settle into that. We do a lot of storytelling with our primary grades.
Thank you. Sue's asking, if we teach about 22 prayers per year, does this mean the cost of the program will be 22 times $3.45 plus $9.95 per student? Yes. So if you want just the turn page, which gets you the journal for every child and access to the turn page online, then that is 22 times $3.45. If you want to add on the app for each student, it's $9.95 in addition. Are the Hineni booklets available in turn page as well? They are coming, yes. All 3 Hineni books are coming in turn page, all through over the summer in June and July. There's a question about a few more price questions. And if I'm going to Shabbat blessings, are there packages for each? The packages are all together. Shabbat blessings is all in what actually is in brachot. So that's just one package. Are all each flip book priced the same? Yes. If I needed 10 students and 1 teacher, would that be 11? Yes. This new offer doesn't include the app, correct. The app is separate. How do you have time to teach language, tefillah, and hagim? Wow, that's a tough one.
That's the essential question for Jewish educators.
Yeah. And that we will, I'm afraid we just don't have time to address now, but yes, Victoria, yes. This may be covered next week, but I wonder if the primers will have options for the students to record practice within the app. One of them does, and we will address that next week. One of them does. Do kids use annotate too? They can, if you allow them. That's your choice. You can change that in settings if you want to. If you trust them, you can. How much for the teacher's guide? If you're talking about the curriculum core, if that's what you're referring to, this is $65 if you buy it in hard copy, and I think you can get it on Kindle for 40 something. I don't know what Amazon is charging the price for that. And if you're referring to the teacher's guide that accompanies the turn page, that is free and is included in with the turn page book, as are the student printables, which are those downloadable pages, one per journal. Could you review what the printable pages in the turn page book? I would, but I think, I'm going to save that to the end. Now, remind me, because I then have to share the screen. But I'm going to come back to that. So let me jump now to the Q&A. Wow. Okay. So I'm seeing, actually, this is the same questions that appeared in chat. Okay.
I'm trying to monitor both the Q&A and the chat, and okay. It looks like
there's many similarities.
Yes.
Okay. Well, if that's the case, if I've forgotten anybody, then if I've forgotten anybody, just add your question again, or we'll follow up afterwards. This was one. Terry, will you be creating many of your picture books to this turn page style as well? Huh. You're referring to the Apples and Honey children's picture book line, and we are not planning to make turn page books out of those, but we are planning to turn many of them into ebooks available through Kindle and Apple Book. And the reason is that those are usually purchased by individuals, by families, by parents, and they will be more likely to want them through Kindle and ebook rather than on the Berriman House website. Because to emphasize, this flip book appears on the Berriman House website in the link that you get when you buy the product. You get a downloadable link. Okay, you get a downloadable link that you share with your teacher. Abra, if you wouldn't mind looking at the questions, I'm quickly going to share my screen so that I can show the group what the turn page. Exit this. Not what the turn page, what the student book is. All right. So if you look down at the bottom of the screen, student printables, I'll click on it so that you can see. It starts with a table of contents which shows each prayer, what the page is and what the activities are and why we chose it, why we think it'll be useful, and why the purpose of choosing that page. Sorry for scooting down, but here's an example from the Aleinu page. You can see it's marked at the bottom in the footer with which page it's from, and we give you techniques for your students students can print this out if they don't have the journal with them at that moment. So it could be something you want to focus them on, something hands-on, something that they would do between sessions, and then you can review together. And then there's a page drawn from Ashray. Again, this is one page drawn from each of the journals, so that's 22 in all that the students would print out. Any other questions we should jump to as we approach 2 o'clock? I mean, I can stay, and so I want to just be sure that we answer all the questions. And again, if you need to leave, we thank you so much for coming.
I think many of the questions are similar, at least in content and nature. There's a lot of questioning about the materials and packaging and pricing. So I think I'm keeping an eye on that, and maybe we can talk about that for your follow-up that goes out.
Okay, I see a comment. It may be a difficult sell for me to I see it about booklets you already own, and this is noted, and something we'll address here. Somebody is saying she was just able to join. Yes, we will follow up with all participants and send the recording. And then we have ideas for what you would like to see in future webinars. For example, a demo of online lesson in action. Got it. To see a mini lesson. Do the students have access to all of the music that is on the app if they have the license? Yes, the app covers, just as the curriculum core covers the entire curriculum, all 22 prayers, so does the app. And actually, that's the same reason that we made the flip book all one, rather than separate Shema, Aleinu, Baruch Hu, Gvurot, and so on, because we just thought this would be easiest for the teacher to access, all in one place. Okay, I see that many of you are asking to see this more in action. You'd love to attend a seminar about learning ways to keep the students engaged. A session for teachers who use Hebron Harmony, walking them through the flip book, the teacher's page for it, and some of the activities. Got it.
I think it would be incredibly helpful if we could work with other education directors to maybe put together a faculty professional development on how to use Hebron Harmony both in person and online.
Excellent. So that is what we will do. And with that, I'm going to wrap up. And we will send you, we will follow up this week with a summary of what we've discussed here, a very short summary, and the recording. And we will schedule more webinars over the course of the summer based on your feedback. And thank you so much for being here, and to all of you for giving an hour of your time. We know this is important work. You are doing important decisions you have to make. Abra, thank you so much for being our partner in this. And we
always a pleasure.
Declare the webinar over.